What's going on, Ultra Buddies? Durian here, going over my top 8 decks from the World Championships. Sorry it's been so slow to get this out to you all. I am working on a more highly edited storytelling version of this, so please look forward to that as well. But I think it's about time I at least talk about my deck so I don't keep people waiting too long. So I played Dyna Arc in deck A and the Belial Zetton for deck B. We're going to do both of them in this video. Just kind of like a brief overview of both decks and some general game plans and thoughts. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So we'll start with Dyna Arc. We'll go in order, deck A, then deck B. So if you're not interested in the Arc, you can skip straight to the Belial, or you don't have to watch the Belial version. Whatever you prefer. So starting with Dyna Arc. So first things first, I cannot take credit for this deck at all because I yoinked it from Twitter. Morimaru78 won a Galaxy Cup with this basically the night before I left for Worlds, and I said, that looks sick. I'm kind of interested in playing Dyna Arc and trying it out a little bit more, so I grabbed all my cards, threw it in my backpack, and here we are. So huge shout out to Morimaru78 for the deck list. I also will cover some cards I might change in both deck lists after having played them a little bit more. And let's get into the sauce. Okay. So of course, Dyna Arc, that's the deck. Just kidding. The Dyna Flashlight from BP04 will send one of your scene cards to the discard area, and you reveal the top 5 cards of the deck. And if there's a level 1, you put it underneath one of your double level 3. So basically, this works as a triple or triple. So if you play it as a 2 and a 3, then you discard and you get a level 1. You can boost straight to a triple. So you can go straight to a triple in lead lane. You can play very, very flexibly with this. And it basically ends up being like a pretty high consistency deck that relies on scenes and putting them into play and discarding them. So that's the key part of the deck. Very, very fun. A little bit roulette. A lot of people call it the roulette deck or the lottery deck. I cannot deny there's some luck involved, but when you go well, it goes well, and I think on average you tend to go well. The next important level 3 is the Strong type Dyna. This card was a huge boost. It's from BP05. As a triple, you can exile a scene card from your discard area and give any of your Ultra Heroes plus 2,000. So that's turning this into a 19,000. That's turning that to an 20,000. That's going to help you survive into like the late game versus a lot of decks. The Dyna Arc deck tends to get a lot of card advantage, which means you can last a bit into the later game a bit more than other decks, or you can kind of shift your strategy around. So the plus 2,000 is a really, really big deal, and this is one of the key finishers. So I think if you're playing a game and you get you have to get one of these, and if you get one of these, then you're feeling pretty good about where you are because you've got a lot to play with. And then we have 2 more level 3s: the Revolium Wave Dyna from BP02. This card lets you exile a card from your opponent's discard area from the game and get plus 1,000 for the turn. It's a nice 13,000 as a double. Pretty weak as a triple, but it doesn't usually come up. And yeah, that's it. So a little exile help in case your opponent's doing a little too much graveyard shenanigans. Then going into the level 2s, this is one of the other cards that brought this deck insane heights, is the level 2 triple rare Miracle type Dyna. When you play this as a single, you reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, and if you get a level 3, you can level it up, boom, on top of there. So that's what really gives this deck a lot of consistency, because even if you don't open up this flash type Dyna, if you have one of these, you basically have 5 more checks to get it in play. So very, very, very strong card. And then, of course, it's this deck that relies on scenes a lot. So we have 4 of the Scene Searcher. Of course, that's top 5 for a scene. And then the last level 2s we have is a Muscle Draw or a Change Draw or Mulligan Draw, whatever you want to call it. So you can return 2 cards to the bottom of the deck and then draw that up to that many. And then 11,000 that gets boosted to 13,000 versus Power types. This one, honestly, I don't have a lot of thoughts. It's the Morimaru sauce. I think it actually worked out well for me in a few games, not in the World Championships, but in a few practice games where Power type is pretty good against Jeeds. So sometimes in the late game, you're forced to go to like a 1-2 Dyna, and then this is a 13 if you catch it right. and that can really like kind of be annoying for the opponent, right? And I think Gaia also has a few power types that you can catch them with this, and it's pretty solid. So yeah, I think this was good. I think having more of these is pretty important, especially if you want to build up slow versus Gaia Ghoul. You really want something with high power so you can contest not getting blown up by Gaia Supreme. So I respect all the ratios of the level 2s there. And then for level 1s, we got our Dyna draws, and then our Dynas for plus 1,000 for each character. I think this one, it was fine. I don't think I ever played it by itself to much effect, so yeah, that's it. That's the Dynas there. Everything worked pretty good here, so you can't really complain. I mean, obviously top 8, so I can't really complain at all. So we're gonna scoot these a little bit. So next we have our Arc cards, and Arc is I mean, some people might argue, but for me, there's definitely no better partner for Dyna than Arc because of the BPO1 triple rare, which we've got 4 of. When this is played as a double or a triple, you can reveal 1 scene card from your hand with a round 1 or lower, and then you discard your opponent's scene, you play your scene. Of course, when you play a scene from your hand, no matter what, when it happens, you get to draw, so you also get to draw from replacing your scene. Then you have a seed for the Dyna Flash type, so you can boost, you can play this as a 2/3 double, play the scene, discard the scene, get a level 1, and have a boom 18k in the new lane. Bada bing, bada boom, really, really strong card. And it covers the main weakness of Ultraman Dyna, which is the fact that if you don't have lead, you can't play a scene, and then you can't get this effect. Or if your opponent plays a level 2 scene, or a level 3 scene, or sorry, round 2 plus scene, you cannot play your level 1 scenes anymore, and then you cannot use this effect, and then you cannot make triples. So it's pretty rough. And then I think pretty much to be expected is the rest of our arcs, the Scene Searcher, and the level 1 draw. And then that leaves us with 8 cards left over is our scenes. Sorry, I know it's kind of messy here. Don't have as much space as I usually do with this new layout. We have 4 in the Light of Fate. This one lets you draw a card and then return a card from your hand to the top or bottom of the deck. This is like the card for Dyna. If you're not playing Dyna with 4 of these, you gotta rethink it and you gotta put 4 of these in, because what this does is it lets you put your level 1s on top of the deck, or if you have a level 2 miracle type here, you can put this on top of the deck and then get the level up. So you could basically get 1 card out of it. You get the guaranteed activate on that. You can put another scene on top of the deck to get it with a Scene Searcher. Or if you're like really, really looking for something, you can put it on the bottom so that when you search with one of these or with one of these, you're more likely to hit what you have. You don't have to put it back on top. So this card is like the sauce for the deck. You have to be playing it at 4. And then we've got 3 Wandering Future. This one lets you discard a card and then put 1 arc from your discard area back into your hand. So that basically, even though you're only playing 12 arcs, this card lets you basically grab whatever you need whenever you want it with your arcs and kind of work that out. So you might even play a setup turn where you use this 1 turn, get the level 1 from the discard, and then use this one the next turn to put it on top of deck to set up an arc triple. That's happened before. And then finally, 1 Dyna vs. Dyna Deadly Fight. So you can give one of your Dyna plus 2,000 when it enters play. Just like a nice emergency button power boost. Sometimes you need that extra power to hit over things. And that is the Dyna deck. I think some pro tips for playing the deck is think a lot about how you want to play the first turn. I think the first turn of the game is really important because you want to be lead that first turn. If you're going to win dice roll, you're always going to play lead. You want to play lead, so if you know what deck your opponent's playing and they kind of know what you're going after, it's going to be a lot more difficult. But I got a lot of advantage out of this by playing Dyna deck A. I lost quite a few. I lost quite a few game 1s, but they're not expecting the Dyna, and so they're not playing it around it because obviously you can't play around it if you don't know. That gives me some advantage of like how I want to set up my plays, whether I'm going first or whether I'm going second. So yeah, you really want the lead turn 1. It gets a little bit more difficult if you don't have lead turn 1, especially against decks like Jeet or things like that can put out strong doubles. Because if you notice, all our doubles here are 12, 13, 13, technically 14 when it comes into play, and 11. So if you lose the lead, then it's very hard to like get it back without having this effect out. So you're going to need to rely on the orc if you don't have the lead. So sometimes you're gonna need to overcommit to get the lead on lane one, just so you can like get the deck's engine going, and then I think one of the biggest like value plays that I got out of playing this deck is that you don't always have to discard your scene, because there's quite a few decks. I think Jeed is the primary one that don't run a lot of scenes, or sometimes don't run any scenes. So if you're playing against Jeed, you can set up lane one. You can turn one, you can have lead, you can play this, and then turn two, you can go for another setup turn, assuming you have this in hand, and then not use the scene to pop it, and then you can use it later, right? So you have to decide whether you want to use it that first turn and then just keep going, or maybe you have a bunch of scenes in hand, or if you don't have a lot of scenes in hand, you can just keep it in your hand, save it for later, save it when it's going to be most impactful, and go for a little bit more setup. Speaking of setup, I think one of the important things to know is like maybe playing this as a single if you feel pretty safe. You play it as a single, you get the scene in your hand, and then the next turn you can play this. And that's like the most efficient way to play that double. If you have time to do that, that's a great play. Because then, like I said, you can play this. Maybe you get a Light of Fate, and then the next turn you can play this, and then use the scene to put Arc on the top, and then you have an 18th hit there. So even though you only committed a single the last turn, it can turn into a triplet. So it's very kind of scary to play against this deck because you can set up some pretty nasty turns. And my last thought is not basically kind of what I said earlier, but it's not to overcommit on the flash type effect. It's a very, very strong effect, but that's not how you have to build your triples every single time. There's a lot of games where I knew I wanted to build up into a triple eventually, and so I would choose, I think it happened most often with Arc, where I would play an Arc 1 or maybe an Arc 1-2 because I knew I wanted the Arc the next turn, but I didn't have scenes, or I didn't have enough scenes to make me feel comfortable for just going for like a 2-3. So you might as well like put it in, because when the level ones are in your hand and you don't have Light of Fate, they're not useful for anything. So you might as well use them to play 1-2s, so you can set up triples like organically instead of relying on this like 100% of the time. So you have to get used to that. That's all my like, I guess, tips and tricks for the deck. It's super fun. It's my favorite deck. I will definitely try to keep playing it in the future and probably make some tweaks. So the only tweaks that I think I'm thinking of at the moment is actually this card, because I realize most likely, I think Exile is not very useful. It could change in the new set. BPO8 has a lot of graveyard effects, but I don't think the Exile is that important, which means that mostly it's just a plus 1,000 for one turn. So you're looking at a 14-17, a 14k double, 17k triple for one turn, or and then after that it's 13-16. So for me, I feel like the primary purpose of this card is to act as a 14 to try to do your best attempt to take lead if you don't have it as a 2-3 double. So I would rather play the 14k vanilla here. So I think it's like 7, 14, 16. So you lose some situations where you play this guy down as a 2-3, you use the flash type effect, make it a triple, and it's a 17k for that turn. But overall, I think the 14k is more valuable. So that's like the only change I would make there. And maybe I'll look at these, but this I think is like a pretty low, not low hanging fruit, but it would be like a low impact change. It's just a pretty solid card. And then the level ones, I think you could go with the ones that boost first power type. I don't think it would make a huge difference either way. This is probably a little better overall, just because if you've got 3 Dynas, then it's a 7, and then you can exile a scene with the strong type to make it a 9, so it can tie some level 2. So I think that's better off than playing the power type and anti-power type and trying to hit things. So that is Dyna Arc, the roulette deck, the lottery deck. But it's very strong when it gets going, and it's just a blast to play. This is my favorite deck, probably I think my favorite deck all time to play. So feel really, really happy that I was able to play it to such success at the World Championships, getting the top 8. I'm sorry I don't have the stuff to show off there, but it's up in the card shop getting promoted at the card shop. So there's that. But yeah, really, really happy with Dyna Arc. Can't wait to see where the deck goes in the future. And I think next we'll talk about, here we go. It's the prizes, yay! So then Arc helped me get these top 8 prizes: the championship playmat, the top 8 Earth Garon. So let's move on to the other deck that brought me to the top 8. Belial Zetton. Alright, Belial Zetton. This deck it's just a solid, consistent deck. It does what it needs to do. It gets the job done. It puts on a lot of pressure to the opponent. That's what you need sometimes. Very, very consistent deck. Obviously, only lost for me once, actually, in the top 8. So, didn't quite pull in the top 8, but Belial was my clincher. I played it as my B deck. I always stick A, B, A, B, A, B. B is always my last one. So Belial doesn't get a lot of chances to lose, so it really needs to come through. So Belial's my clutch. It was my clutch in New York qualifier to get into Worlds. It was my clutch in Worlds, holding down the fort. So of course the first card is the level 7 Belial. You know it. Double, triple activate. Discard a card from your hand that is not an Ultra Hero and give one of your Belial or other Kaiju with printed BP EX BP a BP grade increase. So it's just pumping out the BP grade increases. The 18k. I mean, this card is such a menace. Like, whenever Mebius comes back, Mebius has got that same effect, so you cannot sleep on it. And then we have one level 7 vanilla 17k, 17k, and we have three 14k vanillas. The vanillas are just really strong. Then other Belial level 7s don't have any good effects, so you've got to be playing the vanillas. We've got the 14k just because 14k is kind of brutal. I think this deck is basically just a 14k deck, and you put a lot of 14ks out, and your opponent will hopefully and most likely crumble under pressure, combining with sorry, there's a garbage truck outside. Most likely they will fumble under the pressure of BP grade ups, already losing to the 14ks and whatnot. And then the 17 is because sometimes you just need something to make a triple, and it doesn't have to be a good triple. It doesn't have to be an 18k. It just needs to be a 17k to hold down the fort, okay? Sometimes that's just what you need, and that's why we have the Belial 17k. All right, so I'll come back to this because this might be one of the things I change. And then go into level 6s. We have the Kaiser Belial. Kaiser Belial Mantle. This card is just like, not really just like Jeed, but it is similar to Jeed, but you reveal 2 cards from the top of your deck, and you put 1 Belial from each with a different level, as long as it's not this guy, into your hand. And so you just build a ton of cards in hand. You can just pump out 14ks every turn, and it's actually so scary. It's such a tough thing to deal with when this deck gets so many cards in hand. We've also got 6 12k vanilla Belial Kaisers. This is because similarly you need a strong level 2. If you need to build a triple versus Gaia, sometimes you want to put the 12k there so that when they bounce all their top off, then they get hit with the 12k and you're not going to lose, or they might lose, which prevents them from going for the bounce. That's pretty important. We've got the Ultraman Belial Giga Battlenizer. This is our scene searcher. Scene searcher right there, top 5. Look for a scene because we do play a few scenes, and you're better off looking for a little bit of extra cards when you can. Having the extra power on the level 2 doesn't matter that much because you're going to be leveling it up most of the time. And we've got 7 level 1s. We've got obviously 4 of the ones that look at the top 3 and grab a kaiju, and then 3 of the ones that are 10k BP grade increase when they're versus an Ultra Hero. Just obviously a solid card. So the Belials, the math a little bit on this is that because of the Kaiser Belial, you want everything to be like a bit of an even ratio. So you'll notice I have 7, and it can't target itself. So you'll notice I have 7 level 5s, and I have 7 level 6s that aren't Belial Mantle, and then I have 8 Ultraman Belials because I started with 7, and then I was like, I think to utilize 11 level 6s, you need more level 7s than just 7 level 7s, right? So that's like where the extra one comes in, and because like you definitely need more than 5 cards that you're trying to build a triple with. And then we've got so I might as well, we'll just pause. about talk about the ratios on this really quick. I think this ratio is perfect for what worked out in the tournament for me. If one of these, if the 14k I had in my hand in the top 8 match was a 17k, I would have won. But in a previous match, I had the 17k and it actually saved my butt. And I had another 14k, which was also saving my butt in the same game. So if I had instead drawn two 17ks that game, I would have lost. So that's like it kind of worked out perfectly for me. But just because if I had one of these in my hand in the top 8 match, maybe I would change one card, probably a Zetton, over to this Belial, just so that I have a little bit more oomph in the level 7. So that's like the only change that I would make here. So let's talk about Zetton. So this is the reason I mean, the Belial side is very, very solid, and it gives us what the deck is consistent about. But the reason you play this deck, of course, is for the Zettons, because Zetton is crazy. I don't really know how I'm going to lay this one out. We'll just go on top of the Belials maybe, or we can move the Belials aside. I think moving the Belials aside makes more sense for now. Sorry, Belial, gotta scoot over for a second. Make room for the Zettons. So for the Zettons, of course, 4 promo Zettons, 4 anti-BP grade up Zettons, and 4 anti-type Zettons. This is the reason you play the deck. Let's be honest. This card bullies so many decks. It also bullies bad hands. If your opponent doesn't have a good hand, and they just, I only drew one of all of my types of ultras, the promo Zetton comes down and it ruins their day. And it happens because a lot of decks these days are running very, very close to mono decks. They might not be mono decks, but they might only have 8 to 12 of a support ultra, and sometimes you just don't draw them. So promo Zetton works there. Anti-BP grade up is just like good versus everything. You can really catch people with this. It's insane against like Decker and Trigger Dark, and it really blocks off some options versus Jeed. You can catch in a Ghoul Blade and Gaia Ghoul. This card's crazy. And then this one is like a lot more niche, but it has a lot of power to it. When you have they all have the same type. And that's because Gaia Ghoul is mostly basic types. Tiga Blazer is mostly basic types. So there's a lot of times when your opponent is going for like a Tiga swap, and you can actually put this Sky into lane 3, and if they didn't have the right setup to make sure they don't have only basics, then you're going to hit the 20 and they're not going to get lead, and they're not going to get the scene, and they're going to have a bad time. So this one's harder to use, but it's definitely useful. I don't think I ever got this specific effect off, but the pressure of it matters a lot. And the pressure of this card really helped me it made it a lot more awkward for my opponent in the top 8. They ended up playing around it because they had to respect its existence. And if they didn't respect its existence, then I would have won. So it was smart of them to respect it. But the fact is that like this card would have helped me like play if they had not thought to play around it by playing a power type, and the rest of their board was basic. So it's a very, very important like card to have in the deck. And then level 5s, we have 12Ks. We got 4 of those, and then 2 draws. That's because with the level 5 Belial and the Belial Mantle, you don't need to draw that much, and you care much more about having pressure or playing this to pressure the lead on lane 2, and also just like pressure level ups and stuff. Basically, like you're kind of forcing your opponent to act if you have one of these cards out, and being able to be aggressive and then decide which Zetton goes on the field is much more valuable than being able to draw and then deciding what goes onto the field. Most of the time, you care more about being aggressive. And then we have 3 level 7 Zettons. This is solely a fixer. You don't like care that much about this card, to be honest. What this does is if you play a Zetton, like say a promo Zetton, and then they play something later that will turn off promo Zetton, then you level it up, and then you have a chance to gamble your opponent out of the game. So it turns guaranteed losses into gamble wins, and that's like really what it's there for. It's it's just like a get out of jail card, and that's like how it should be played. It should not be part of your main strategy. Your main strategy is playing aggressive with 14Ks, pressuring your opponent with Belial and 14Ks and BP ups, And then if you have like a weird spot, then you gamble your way out of it. And then we have 3 scenes. We have 2 1 trillion degrees and 1 end of the world. So the logic on this is not like super clear. But the first save end of the world is mainly for the mirror match. I wasn't sure how many Belial mirrors I would play. I think there was 1 total, and he had swapped off his Belial, so we ended up not playing the mirror. But I wanted something to be able to be like, oh, your 14Ks versus my 14Ks. Well, mine are now 15, and you lose. That was the point of that. Versus for the 1 trillion degrees, this one is basically, I don't know, if you go back, and my theory on scenes is basically like if you play scene search, you add a card to hand, and you play the scene, it turns into a different card. It's very strong to get extra cards in hand in this game, so we just kind of want those. And this one has the bonus side of being really good in the late game. So if you have the lead, which you probably will in a late game situation like turn 6, if you have that lead, then a lot of times turn 6 can easily be like 3 wins, go to turn 7. But if you can force a tie, it turns into 3 wins, 1 tie, 2 wins, and then you win what would have normally been a stalemate. So it's really good there. But the actual reason it's in the deck is because there's lots of round 2 scenes that are ridiculously good, and you need to get rid of them if given the chance. Things like Scarred and Silver Eyes of Isaac. If you were given the chance to get rid of them, you want to be able to get rid of them. So you can think of this as like a scene destroy, basically. Because there are games you will lose if your opponent plays Scarred, or if they play Silver Eyes of Isaac and you leave it on the field forever. Yeah, so that's basically the main reason for that. And that's the deck end. So like I said, the only change I would make is I think I would want to play 1 more of these because it came in clutch for me so much. And I don't fully know what I would take out. I think it would be one of these 2. So the level 7 Zetton, almost never played this card, to be honest. So I wouldn't feel that bad about playing 1 less. And there were several times where like I had the 7 and the 5 and it was useless. So I do think actually I would take the level 7 Zetton out, put in a level 7 Belial, and that's probably the sauce. That's probably exactly how I would want it. And if I had that, if that had come up in that spot, I think I had 2 level 7 Zettons in top 8. If I had the 17k, I would have been able to live 1 more turn against my opponent's guy, Agul, in the final game 3. I would have been able to live 1 more turn, and then my opponent would have been gassed out, and I would have won that match. So that seems like a good trade. So I think that's what I would do is swap the 17k for a 7, and that's it. You know, I think I got everything pretty spot on in my decks for Worlds. It paid off, of course, as you can tell from the top 8. Hope you enjoyed me yapping a little bit about the decks, how they're constructed and everything. If you want to learn a little bit more how I got to these specific decks and the tournament journey in general, then please subscribe and stay tuned for the full story arc breakdown of my top 8 run at the World Championships. And yeah, look forward to it. It's sorry it's a little slow, but I'm hoping it will be something worth waiting for. All right, thank you, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.